For those of you who don't know me, my name is Achil Prabhat. I'm a social confidence coach, and I help predominantly South Asian origin men, immigrants who live in the West, to build the kind of confidence that is necessary to just meet people in real life again and actually build lasting relationships here in the West. And I've observed from working with these men, hundreds of men at this point, and talking to thousands, that many of them are actually really attractive, successful, wealthy, well-mannered, educated, and even sporty and good looking. Nevertheless, it turns out they often irritate women and people in general with certain behavioral traits here in the West. And I accompany these people oftentimes in person and actually look at what exactly is it that irritates them. I am actually half German, half Indian, so it turns out my own German, my own Western side also does get irritated by those things. So often I see these things before I even have to see my clients interact with other people here in the West. But obviously I have enough empathy to not just be irritated and run away, but to explain exactly what it is that is irritating people here in the West, why it is off-turning to people, and why it's especially off-turning to women in the dating scene. And in this video, I'm going to show you the most common patterns that I've observed of over 5 years of working with Indian men here in the West. Many of these patterns might not exactly apply to you. I mean, these are just general tendencies. I have my own biases as well, and I only see certain people. I don't see all Indian men. Nevertheless, I would say that I have rarely met an Indian man to whom none of these 3 behavioral patterns apply at all. So I'm sure you'll find something here that gets you thinking and that makes you maybe want to implement a certain change in your life. So let's get started. And the first one is that a lot of Indian men just don't really connect with the local culture. And I don't mean the pop culture. I don't mean the superficial, the music, maybe the concert scene, the club scene. All of that is more short-lived. I mean the more deeper currents of culture, what is also called the high culture. You know, you might have been to a club recently, but when is the last time that you went to an opera? Have you been to an opera and actually watched the whole 2-3 hours of people singing their lungs out on stage? Have you been to that talk in the beginning, before the opera even starts, where they explain the meaning and the deeper metaphors behind the opera? Have you been to a ballet? Have you been to a theater? Have you read the story of the theater on Wikipedia? Have you been to art galleries? Have you actually listened to the audio guides or the real tour? Have you taken the real tour of a museum where they explain to you the deeper meaning of all these objects? I mean, it's so important to connect to those deeper currents of culture. And obviously one of the best ways also to do that without having to go anywhere is reading books, reading literature, not just nonfiction self-help gurus, but art. When you enter a new society and you don't know the people around you directly yet, it's much easier to go and connect to the place first than trying to connect to those people directly, because the place is what connects you with those other people. You're sharing that place with the other people, and if you know about the place, if you know about the history, if you know about the customs and the norms, if you learn the local language, that's going to help you so much in connecting with those people. And there's a great example that I'd like to actually link to, Arjun Talvar. He's a filmmaker. I met him recently at Berlinale Film Festival, and he made a film where he just describes his experience of getting to know one street in Poland where he settled as an international student. And the film is incredible. You should check that out if you get the chance. It's a great example of how you can really connect to the deeper currents of culture, of local culture as an immigrant. And apart from giving you great content that you can actually talk about with those other people, that's also going to help you develop a better communication style, a more adapted communication style. A lot of Indian men that I observe, they have a certain sloppiness about their communication. They don't really care about punctuation, typos in their messages, really bad grammar sometimes. And of course, that's because they often just don't hang out with a lot of locals who actually speak better English than their Indian friends. Or also because they just don't care about language. They just don't care about the deeper beauty of good language. So surround yourself with that culture that exemplifies beautiful, elegant, powerful communication here in the Western world. And that, of course, also holds for your digital environment. If you're subscribed to a lot of trashy YouTube channels and Instagram channels, you're never going to learn that sophistication that's really going to set you apart. By the way, if you like the sophistication of this video so far, then make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. All right, time to move to the second big mistake that a lot of attractive Indian men make when they move abroad. And that's that they often don't spend enough time and resources on making their environment beautiful. This is, of course, also a bit difficult if you're just new here and you have to figure out your education, your job status, your visa status. But once you got that figured out, once you have the foundations and you know you're not gonna go out of work in the next year, it's time to really think about, how can I present myself in the best possible way? How can I dress well? And I see a lot of Indian men that just have these rules from back home where they're like, no way, I'm never gonna spend 200 euros on a coat. Or they think, oh my God, what is that in rupees? Or my parents would kill me if they find out how much I spent on this jeans. Stop acting like a poor person. Stop acting like someone who's still earning in rupees. You're not earning in rupees. And a lot of men that I interact with, they're actually really successful. They're earning much more than the average German, but they still live like students. They share their flats, they check out the prices of everything and exclaim that it's way too expensive. They're using old stuff from India. They're using their old banyan underwear shirts. They have these colorful Tupperware bottles. I think you should get rid of those blue, yellow, pink, green Tupperware bottles. They make you look like a child. Also the backpack, like those backpacks that are hanging down to people's butts. In general, when there is fashion that was produced for the Indian market to look like it was the Western original, like counterfeit brands, fake American traveler bags. When it's trying to be Western, but it's actually not, it's usually just inferior quality. And people can see that. Sophisticated people can see that right away. And this also applies to your home, of course. I have so many clients who paid for my coaching, they paid for a photographer to take professional photos for their dating profiles. And nevertheless, when I see their home, it actually looks like a student dorm. Like they live like teenagers almost, not cleaning up after themselves, not caring about the aesthetics, not really decorating the place or putting any plants there. And then often they come to me saying, yeah, it's going okay, I'm meeting some new people, I'm meeting some women as well, but every time it gets a bit more intimate, the girl loses interest. And I realized that this guy would never show his background in the video calls when I was talking to him. He would always blur it or put some office background there. So one day I said, hey, why don't you show me your home? Like, I'd like to see that. And he said, no, I can't. Sorry, this is a bit messy right now. I have to fix this and that. At some point, I made him remove that background. And as I expected, it was an utter mess. It was obvious that every time he asked someone to come back home, or actually someone did come back home with him, he was extremely ashamed. He probably didn't even fully enthusiastically invite people back home because he knew it would just turn them off. Dating is the process of inviting a potential partner into your life. If you can't even invite them into your current home, there's no way that invitation is going to be very compelling. That just shows that you really haven't fully arrived here when you haven't made your home beautiful. It shows that you are kind of rushing through life and trying to check some boxes, make some money. Now you think it's time to find a partner, you want to get that fixed. But if the center of your life, your home, is not beautiful, it seems like you're not really enjoying the whole journey. Of course, coming from the Indian background, some of these men expect the woman then to bring that order and that beauty to their home. But in the Western dating context, that's just considered immature. So make your home beautiful, okay? It doesn't have to be Instagram worthy, but it should be clean and it should be pleasant to look at least for yourself. Okay, and now let us move on to the third and the most important, the biggest mistake that I see successful Indian men make very consistently. And that is that they often end up doing what they are expected to do, what they are asked to do, but not what they actually want to do in life. They don't end up taking full ownership and pursuing their own dreams and passions. This has very severe consequences. First of all, it prevents you from living up to your full potential, because to reach the highest echelons of society, to reach the highest echelons of success, to be the world's best, you have to be extremely passionate about what you're doing. If you're not doing what you really, really want to do, if you're just doing what you feel like you're kind of told to do, you will never be as motivated to really go for it. Second, you won't build true self-confidence when you don't do what you actually want to do yourself. If you're following other people's plans, you still have to make decisions about the execution of those plans, but the real, the true, the deepest confidence comes from not executing a plan, but from choosing which plan to execute and from actually making your own plan. And that is something that you don't have to do if you just view the world through the lens of prefabricated plans. And when you don't make your own plan that fits to your individual needs, you end up being fearful of like the real raw reality because you've never had to make a plan from scratch. You always interacted through some models. You always stayed in a kind of playground world. You've never hit the world hard. And that's a fear that people can sense. And then third, if you don't have your own vision in life and pursue that, you're also not a very exciting conversation partner. It's hard to relate with someone who's kind of living for other people, who's an extension, almost a puppet. It's like, who am I talking to? If you don't agree with arranged marriage, if you don't agree with the caste system, then why are you getting an arranged marriage in the same caste? Just because your parents want that? It's important to honor your parents, but with the biggest decisions in life, if you don't do what you actually want to do, it means you're not a fully individuated person. And on the other hand, if you do take up a difficult mission and say, I'm going to go for that, even though it's a bit hard, even though it's not exactly what the plans of my society want me to do, that's when your life turns into an exciting mission and an exciting adventure, almost like into an exciting movie where there's endless stuff to talk about. There's never the question in your mind of what should I say, what should I text, what should I talk about. You talk about the exciting problems that you're facing in your life. And I'm not saying that's going to be easy. If you sit down and really think about what you want, what would be an amazing life for you, then you're going to hit the world hard and the world is going to say, no, you can't have that. And that's going to create some pain. You're going to suffer. But if you fight through it and you don't numb yourself, you don't escape, but you face that pain, that's what's actually going to make you mentally, emotionally strong. That's what's going to make you confident. And that's what's going to give you a masculine aura. And you become someone who can lead himself and then is trusted to lead others. So in conclusion, when you are aware of these three tendencies, when you're aware of these three big mistakes that the South Asian cultural background tends to lead people towards, you can counteract them consciously and you can demolish the stereotypes that people have against Indian culture. And when you go out there and you do that, you'll notice that actually people don't want to be stereotyping. They don't want to be racist. They really don't want to. But if they end up making similar experiences over and over again, and when those experiences obviously also get enhanced by certain biases, by social media, they will end up forming certain patterns. When you break those patterns, they actually feel extreme relief. They're happy that finally they can prove to themselves that they are not racist because they like someone who has brown skin color. They can feel great about not having to reject someone from that background again. Of course, there's a balance to be struck here. You can't just overcompensate and do exactly the opposite of what every other Indian man does. You have to understand the points that I told you about here, and only if it makes sense to you, only if you agree that there is a problematic behavior, then you make the change. Not just because someone who might be a bit whiter than you told you to do. If you need more help with understanding the nuances here and really implementing that into your life, then feel free to schedule a free consultation call with me through the link that I put in the description. And there we can also talk about one other way that you can really differentiate yourself from the mass of Indian immigrants, which is to take personal development training. That's again something that most other immigrants would never consider doing, but if you're one of those, I'll be happy to speak to you soon. Otherwise, see you in the next video. Samgachadvam. Namaskar.